Yeah,
Hello, Sue, and welcome to my podcast, One for the Road. So lovely to see you. And we met in Clitheroe a couple of years ago
we
at
did.
a weekend thing where I was doing a talk and that, and it was fantastic. And it was so lovely meeting you as well.
Oh, thank you. Obviously, that you were the highlight of my weekend, but don't tell you William Porter.
I'm not sure he listens to this anyway. I saw him the other day, actually. We
Yeah.
had a drink for Christmas, and he's all right. He is. He's a good
Yeah.
chap.
Do you
Yeah.
know what's funny? William did come on my podcast, and I said to him, "You were the highlight of my weekend. Don't tell sober
Oh,
Dave."
great. All right. So it meant nothing then. Oh, well, it's lovely to see you, and that's the end of it now. After that, so I'll see you later.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks for that. Good to see you.
Yeah. So you've just celebrated 7 years, so you're slightly ahead of me.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
It feels amazing. I do have to remind myself how bad I was, though, because I think
Mm,
some people see how, well I cope with things and how well I'm doing in life, and I am. That's not me being gloaty. My life is pretty, great. And they think, oh, you can't have been that bad, and I have to remind myself of where I used to be
mm.
because the very last thing I want to do is get complacent and
Yeah, we can't, can we?
fall from no.
No, I'm the same, and
Yeah.
the listeners know that I regularly go down to Eastbourne, which is well, I had a terrible rock bottom for a few days there, and I sit on the beach and reflect each time I go down there, and I go down there 3 or 4 times a year.
Right.
But I reflect every time and think, right, what's changed since I last came here? What have I done? What have I achieved? What haven't I achieved? What do I want to achieve? Those kind of things. Or are you happy being where you are? All these sort of thought provoking questions. But it's important that we don't get ahead of our game because, as we know, the old alcohol's a very cunning drug.
Yeah.
And if you are complacent, it can creep up, can't it?
Yeah. And you know what, Dave? To be honest, this year or this last few months has scared the life out of me because I have had a number of people, friends, people from old sobriety days, old sobriety groups who have been long termers and had a drink. And albeit I'm really grateful that those people have reached out and spoke up and asked for help, it has absolutely scared me because I thought, well, if it can happen to them, it can actually happen to any of
Mm,
us.
yeah.
And so complacency is one of my kind of things that I'm trying to keep at bay at the moment.
Yeah, well done. All right, let's wind it all back then. Like,
Okay.
what was it like for you as a little un?
As a little one, do you know when you said before about, oh, we'll talk about your childhood and stuff like that? I can't remember what I did yesterday, of being a woman of my age, Dave. But I
Your
actually,
age.
oh, I am 50. I was 50 this year.
Uh,
I when I was younger, I didn't have anything too traumatic happen. I didn't have anything life changing. I had a really happy childhood. It was what I would say is normal, whatever normal is. I was the oldest of five children. So, lovely, happy memories. Going on holiday. It was always UK based holidays. My mum and dad used to drink. When I was younger, I didn't necessarily think that it was to excess. Um, and, I did have a very happy childhood. Um, and then it was only as I kind of got towards teenagers, a little bit older, young, early 20s, I realised my dad was drinking quite a lot, drinking whiskey. He was drinking a lot of whiskey and he was drinking it to cope with stress and trauma that he'd experienced. Um, and, a few times a year we would kind of congregate, me and my siblings, and we'd try and have a chat or try and intervene and try and stop buying bottles of whiskey for Christmas and Father's Day and birthdays and whatnot. Um, and on and off over the years, my dad really did try. But I would say probably for a lot of my adult life, my dad had that drinking problem. So it was kind of there in the background. Um, and I didn't. I didn't actually, I didn't, have a drink problem early on. I actually, when I had my drink problem, and I'll go on to that in a little bit, it was short, sharp, deep depths, and a lot of drinking. But it wasn't for a long period of time, like a lot of drinkers, like a lot of
Mm.
people who have a problem. Mine was over kind of 7 to 10 years, which is quite short term, really, when you consider, my dad was 30 odd years. I
Yeah,
think you had a very long standing relationship, didn't you, with alcohol?
yeah.
So mine was fairly short, really, but it was very serious. Um,
So when
so
you was
just
in your
go on.
teens and that, did it not be quite often I talk to people and they go 14 because there's that weird crossover between being a kid and an adult,
Yeah,
and we're all insecure and worrying about how we look and want to be accepted. And, you know, not everyone has childhood trauma. I mean,
no,
that's always a funny one as well, isn't it? Because I always say, what is that? It's
yeah,
not always abuse. It could be not having your emotional needs met.
yeah,
Like a lot of people say, well, well, they was never told they were proud of me, or they never give me a hug, or they never told me they love me. But that's also an era thing for a lot of people.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think we're a lot more open now. So,
yeah.
in your teens, did you not really bother with it?
So the only thing I would say, just to go back to you a little bit about trauma there, I had a very loving home, very loving family, and everything was great. The only thing really I feel was I wasn't very clever. I wasn't very good at school. I was constantly told I wasn't good enough. I wasn't capable of doing, and if only Sue, was quiet and paid attention and whatever. So that I think is the only thing that has stuck with me then to this age, and I've gone on to get 2 degrees and become a very senior manager in the NHS. And I think that's me proving that I might have been a bit rubbish at school, but I can do it now.
Proving
Um,
to who though? You or them?
well, probably both.
Hmm.
Proving that I could do it. And I mean, I did do it, you know, not like smashing it. I did it by the skin of my teeth. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
get the greatest results, but I still did it. I
You
still got my
did.
cap and gown.
Yeah. Well done.
Um, thank you. So yeah, probably to both. It was a little bit of a fingers up to this, those people that didn't believe in me when I was younger, but also me. And I don't think I believed in me because I was far too busy, with my friends and boys and going to parties and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
to take education seriously. I wasn't that bright either. So, I didn't apply myself. I didn't know how to. And I also didn't see the need really,
Hmm.
until I was older. So, when you said about the teenager thing, so my drinking as a teenager, so I did the whole kind of 14, 15, going sitting on a park bench with a brown paper bag with Thunderbird or White Lightning.
Hey.
Oh God, the hard stuff. Oh, special. Was there a special brew
Brew.
or something like
Special
that?
brew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, horrific. So I did that on a Friday night with all my friends and went partying. So that will have been to fit in. Um, but even at that early stage, whenever I drank, on those occasions, I can honestly say it was to blackout. So there wasn't a moderation, I think, at that stage. Um, because there was those occasions where I woke up and I didn't know where I was and which friend's house I was at and things like that. So that probably should have been an early indication that I didn't have an off switch, to be honest. Um, so yeah, so that was my teenage drinking, and it wasn't, I didn't go off the rails as such, and I wasn't doing it every night or anything like that. And I think what probably saved me at that point was I met my first husband. Let's not ask how many husbands there were, by the way, but I met my first husband when I was 15, 16. And so I went on to have kids, get married, and I did all of that. And so I didn't go out drinking all the time and go out partying with mates and stuff like that because I was bringing up a family. And that's what I focused on. So whenever we went out drinking, it was just as a couple for a meal and one thing or another, and it just wasn't to excess. So I went all of that time, which was about 14 years, without a drink problem. So again, quite unique, you know, because a lot of people have drink problems for a long time, don't they? Um, my second husband, he was teetotal, so I didn't drink then either. So I got all the way to my mid 30s.
I thought he was going to say I got all the way to my sixth husband.
Well, that's another story, another podcast for another time, Dave. No, I'm not that bad. So I got to my mid 30s before I very quickly, overnight, um, developed a drink problem. And what happened was I met my third long term partner, didn't get married. And to fit in to that relationship, because I didn't feel very confident, didn't feel very attractive, and all of those things, I started to drink every night to fit into that kind of relationship. So I probably I was with that person for like 13 years, and I've only recently thought I probably never felt comfortable. I never felt able to be in that relationship not having had a
Mm.
drink.
It's interesting,
Um
isn't it? Like, this is
yeah,
what I was saying now. You have to be comfortable in your sober skin.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. You know, and I've always been kind of careful to not say, oh, I started drinking because of that person, because I don't want it to come across like that. But what I started drinking to be with that person, not because of that person. They never ever forced me to drink. So it was me and my choice to relax. And, you know, this person was a fair bit younger than me. And, you know, I wanted to appear more fun,
But
more
is there
attractive.
part of that as well? Because I do hear this with people I work with at times, that they're afraid if they didn't fit in that they would get rejected and
Oh, yeah.
you're on your own again because
Yeah.
you're not drinking.
Yeah. And I'd already had two failed marriages, Dave. So,
Yeah.
you know, did I want to not be the fun party girl that somebody wanted to be with? No, I didn't want to be that person. And I didn't want to be left on the shelf. And I know I was only 35 at the time, but that's not the point. You don't realize how much baggage you are carrying from relationship to relationship anyway. And I clearly was and hadn't really realized. So I very quickly, after meeting that person, started to drink every night. So in the house, whether it was in the house or going out. So that was always one bottle of wine to maybe two of a weekend. And that was my life for 5 years. But I was highly functioning. So I still had a great job. I did get one of my degrees during that time, by the skin of my teeth. And I was kind of plodding along. Okay. And then 2 years before I stopped drinking, my dad passed away. And my drinking just hit a rock bottom. You were talking 2 to 3 bottles of wine a night, every night, not even a night off, not even oh, I can't drink tonight, it's a school night. It was purely grief. And I later think as well that it was probably a little bit of not wanting to be like my dad, so I'm going to go and find myself at the bottom of bottles of alcohol, but I just didn't know whether it was a way of relating to how he was. Um, and I only kind of thought of that, you know, after I'd stopped drinking, really. I didn't think it at the time, oh, I need to do this to be like my dad. I realised it afterwards when I was trying to work out why I drank so much. Um, so, yeah, 2 years, rock bottom, all of that wine, out of control. My kids tried to intervene and speak to me. I was still working, I was still functioning. On my way home at 5 o'clock, I'd be buying multiple bottles of wine, and by 7, 8 o'clock, I was blackout drunk. I'd have caused arguments. I'd have walked out of restaurants, out of the house, sent text messages that weren't even, you know, kind or nice. I wrote stupid stuff on Facebook. I was just an absolute nightmare.
Oh, darling, I can really relate. Like, do you think? I mean, I've looked at that myself. I mean, I was on 60-minute makeover,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and I fell out of a really close friend on there in a drunken um, comment on Facebook because I was so drunk, and something was said that I thought everyone else will think this, so I'm gonna be the one that comments. And
yeah,
honestly, I lost that friendship for about 2 years, and luckily he forgave me and we've never talked about it since. I've tried to bring it up and
yeah,
say, like, I feel bad. I don't want to talk about it. It's just blocked it out. But,
yeah,
you know, I think a lot of, well, this is my opinion of why I used to do it. It's because I used to hate myself that much that it was almost like I would self sabotage everything around
yeah,
me because everything was so bad anyway. It was like, I might as well make it terrible. But
yeah,
I
yeah,
was really angry with myself because I got to this person I didn't even know who I was because I would get through the day, which was a struggle. But like you, I was functioning. So as you
yeah,
know, I was in the carpet trade and that, and some days were really hard. But I would almost work it off physically, like graft it off by lunchtime.
yeah,
And then in the afternoon, it was like, right, I clap my hands and go, right, I can have a drink tonight because I've got away with it. The
yeah,
wife's sort of talking to me, and I've done a good job here, and I've only got 2 hours left, and then but I would drink like you really quickly, and then I'll get all bitter and twisted again.
yeah,
And analysing it since, it's like I honestly think it was like pure anger and resentment of who I'd become and
yeah.
how I felt about myself, and I was projecting it outwardly to other people, and it's awful, really, isn't it?
It is awful. And, I just got emotional then when you said about the self-sabotage. I don't know about you, but I know I still do that. So obviously, being 7 years sober, people think that you've got all your stuff together, and that you know what you're doing with your life. But actually, the work is continuous.
Mm,
I know now that on a daily basis, I still catch myself sabotaging my happiness, my success. There's just stuff. I went from a food addiction, sugar addiction, to alcohol, then to thinking I'm not good enough and pushing people away and all of that. This self sabotage
mm.
is something that I will probably work on for quite some time, because it's like a worthiness thing, isn't
Yeah,
it? Like
it
you
is.
just said, are you worthy to be
Yeah,
happy? Are
yeah,
you worthy to be successful?
yeah.
Well, the answer is yes, and we would say that to other
Yeah,
people, but why can't we say it to ourselves?
because it's deep down a lot of the time, it's
Yeah.
trapped in our nervous system. So when you say food addiction, I mean, I recently took a month off sugar, right? I literally had
Mm.
no sugar, I had no inflammation, I felt really well, healthy. And then when I decided, actually, I've done a month now, it was exactly like my drinking. I
Yeah,
had some chocolate, I had some cake, and then I went on a mission for about 3 days of eating crap.
yeah,
And then I was
yeah,
like, what am I doing? Like, so I do have that real impulsive
yeah,
kind of personality where I'm that all or nothing character,
yeah,
and that's why I didn't get into drugs. Like a lot of people younger than me, they've got involved with coke and other stuff. And I didn't because I knew if I went down that line as well, I'm in real shit. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? So you're right. Like even now I have to look at, you know, oh, you're a really good weight, Dave. So let's fuck that up and eat a
yeah,
load of
yeah,
crap. So you put on 6 pound by next weekend when you're meant to be meeting someone for lunch and you're going to feel horrible. Like
yeah,
none of it makes sense at
yeah,
all. But
yeah,
I'm not perfect and I've always been honest about it. I don't want to come across as this person who's got it all solved because
yeah,
I haven't. We've all
yeah.
got these battles, like what you've just said as well.
Yeah, and people will look at you, and also it's on social media as well. And I think one of the things I've thought of this next year is to be a little bit more honest on social media. I am very much a positive person, ray of sunshine, and I put a lot of my sobriety and success down to how positive I have been about all this. And I coach people through sobriety with positivity. However, let's be realistic. Life isn't a bed of roses 24/7. And like I've just said, when I have a really good day and everything feels amazing, you can bet you can bet your bottom dollar the next day I will self-sabotage and I'll try and ruin it. And I'm like, why are you behaving like that?
Yeah.
Why are you eating the packet of biscuits? Why are you being horrible to somebody? Why are you pushing people away? And why are you being mean? And because it's not you, but it is one of those things that I am going to be more real or realistic with the social media stuff. And I'm also going to be more honest and open when I am having those days where, instead of saying, oh, everything's rosy and everything's hunky dory,
Yeah.
but inside I'm kind of like
Yeah.
not feeling that, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I've recently had a belief coding session with my friend Vicky, and
Right.
it was fantastic actually because I got to work on all these negative
Yeah.
limiting beliefs that I have about myself. And if
Yeah.
I was to say them out loud, people would go, "No, Dave, you're not like that. You don't come across like that." But these are deep childhood wounds. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it was weird because I went back to my 8-year-old. I always thought it was my 14-year-old when Mum left, but I went back to an 8-year-old you
Oh,
know,
wow.
and she helped me really resolve a lot of it. And now daily, I practice these affirmations. I
Right.
deserve to be loved, things like that. And when she said to me, "Do you feel like you deserve to be loved?" I like got really tearful, and the answer was no, right? And now it's
Yeah.
yes, of course I do. But I had to go through these limiting beliefs that I hold about myself, and this is where the work comes after sobriety, giving up booze is the beginning. And
Yeah.
I don't say that to put people off. Oh my God, I've got to do all this as well. It's too much. But, it's kind of 10% stop drinking and then you have to do all the rest. You've got a lifetime of stuff to heal where you've been blacking it out all your life. It's a
Yeah.
challenge.
And I do agree with that. Like you say, putting the glass down is just the first step. However, I also say to people, it doesn't necessarily have to be that's the first step. You can start to do the work before. I mean, obviously, you want people to put a glass down as soon as possible, but also, I'll say to people, we'll do some research and listen to some podcasts and, read some quit lit and stuff like that, because the work is going to take you so long. It's not
Yeah,
an
yeah.
overnight thing,
And
you
not
know.
everyone's ready, are they?
No,
Like we have to plant seeds, and
yeah,
I think when I gave up, it looked like spontaneous sobriety because it was on the day. But
yeah,
I've been telling myself for a good 2 years that I need to sort it out. Like I used to talk out loud like a lunatic. Oh God, mumble under my breath. Like you've got to sort it out. You've got to stop drinking. You're killing yourself.
yeah,
So I was exploring it really for a good couple of years. And then on the day, it was like, right, enough's enough,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And this is why these conversations are important and anyone
yeah.
listening to it are exploring it anyway, aren't they? They're not going to randomly listen to a podcast on sobriety, are they, if they're not sort of exploring it?
No, no. And so it just this very conversation is also planting a seed into, I don't think I'd spent 2 years necessarily knowing that and doing the 2 years worth of work that you were doing or having those thoughts. But certainly for about 12 months, I felt like I was waking up in the morning, walking through treacle, and I'm talking like waist deep treacle here, where I was like, struggling to function. It was taking me all that time to come round, copious amounts of coffee, lying and convincing people at work that everything was fine, everything's fine, there's not a problem here. And nobody ever really challenged me or questioned that. So that must have been how highly functioning I was. And each of those days, I thought, oh, today needs to be the last day. You can't keep doing this to yourself. And by lunchtime, you then kind of stop walking through treacle, you've had your dinner, and then I spend from 12 o'clock till 4 o'clock thinking, right, which shop am I going to call at on the way home? Because I can't keep calling at the same shop and buying 3 bottles of wine because, they'll realise then that I've got a problem. But what was the problem was the walking through treacle, the eating something at lunchtime and I've got everything out my system and then focusing on doing that on my way home. That was the problem, not which
Yeah.
shop I was going.
I know. I think what another problem is that because you're a northerner, you call lunch dinner and dinner tea. I had to get that one in.
Oh, there's
Sorry.
lots of problems with us Northerners, Jane.
Anyway, so right, moving back to your story, right? So
Yeah.
you were drinking copious amounts of booze daily. Your
Yeah.
mental health was shot in a way, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
How long
absolutely.
did that go on for then? Like,
So the 2 years after my dad died, that was the worst of the two
yeah,
years. So that I would say, at least 2 bottles of wine a day. That was the walking through treacle, and I'd
yeah,
actually only been in a very senior NHS job for about 6 months when I went sober because I thought, do you know what, I'm going to lose my job, and I've never lost a job. And I don't want to be sacked from a job because it was paying for me wine for a start. But I didn't want that shame. But I genuinely think if I'd have carried on drinking, two things would have happened. I wouldn't have been here, and that's how bad I was.
yeah,
And secondly, I wouldn't have had that job. I would have lost that job. And I am still in that job, and I have been promoted since. And I'm very, very proud of my job, what I do, and I'm very good at it. And again, that's I'll prove
yeah,
probably to myself actually, because nobody really doubted me or questioned me or, you know, had a conversation with me to say you can't carry on like this or we're going to have to let you go. I hadn't quite reached that stage, but I definitely think I knew in my mind that this was coming to an end if I didn't do something about it.
yeah. And do you know what? People don't talk about it a lot about the benefits of sobriety, but health and relationships, but jobs as well. Like careers
Mm.
soar.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
amount of people I've talked to and they go, do you know what? Since stopping drinking, I've either like yourself been promoted or I'm self-employed. And
yeah,
because we've got more time, more clarity, more focus, more energy. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
the amount of times I didn't do a quote because I was wanting a drink and I thought, oh well, I'll do it another day and I'd cancel
yeah,
it and that and lose the job and or write a quote out wrong because I've been drinking
yeah,
is doing a quote and like
yeah,
silly mistakes and not being present with a client and they're probably looking at me thinking, Jesus, you
yeah.
know?
But all you was focusing on, if you were like me, was just getting home and getting that next
Yeah, I know
drink.
it was, yeah. Yeah.
And it's scary because what kind of life was that?
Mm,
We thought probably at that time that we were living our best life, and
yeah,
I can't wait to get home and let loose and go out for a meal, and I'll just drink one or two glasses of wine. I don't know who I was kidding. I
yeah.
didn't have the ability to have one or two glasses of wine. I know some people do. I never have
And we
really.
know we don't as well, but we kid
Yeah,
ourselves we can, don't we?
yeah, 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 exactly.
Oh yeah, I'll take it easy tonight. So why am I buying a litre of vodka if I'm taking it easy? Buy
Yeah,
a little miniature or something to,
yeah,
like, oh no, just in case. Just
yeah,
in
I know.
case,
It'll be there for tomorrow.
yeah, and all that
Again,
old rubbish.
we were
All
we
right.
were lying to
So
ourselves.
so what point did it get to that you started to think this is enough? Like it's a joke now.
Well, so the story goes, I went to my sister's hen party. Well, it'll have been just over 7 years ago. And I remember going, we was all dressed as unicorns, including my mum,
As you do, yeah.
as you do. And we went to my sister's hen party, and I was convinced that I wasn't going to drink till like 4 o'clock, even though we went out at 12. I was like, pace yourself, because otherwise it's going to be so ridiculous. Anyway, started drinking at 12 o'clock with everybody because I must have lasted about 30 seconds. And I don't remember reaching 4 o'clock. However, I did have to be picked up and taken home because I don't recall anything. I do recall I was sat crying a lot. So at my sister's hen party, I was sat crying and I was really sad for her that my dad wasn't going to be able to give her away because he'd passed away. And but what I was doing was probably just feeling a bit sad myself because I drank much too much. But also, I was projecting that sadness onto her. She actually was going getting married. She was on a hen party. It should have been a really happy time for her. And because I was feeling sad, I was portraying that onto her. And I feel really guilty about that. I feel that I did kind of ruin her hen party. So I think probably somebody rang my ex and said, come and pick her up. She's a disgrace. Um, so I went home. It was probably, chucked into bed or whatever. Um, and the next day, my mum rang me and she said, are we going to talk about what happened yesterday? And I was like, I don't, what do you mean? What happened? And she said, well, you ruined your sister's hen party. And me and my mum never had cross words or anything. We didn't fall out or very close to my mum. And she said to me, you're just turning into your dad. And look what's happened to your dad. So I couldn't speak, couldn't respond. So I just sat and sobbed all day in bed. And I never touched another drink after that. And so I do. I mean, it was a very serious story. It was a very serious rock bottom, and I would never want to have a conversation like that with my mum again. But I do also find it funny that I reached the grand old age of 43 and my mum shouting at me is what made me go sober. So I use it quite light-hearted when I say why I went sober, but it was that short, sharp shock to say you're going to die if you don't stop drinking. And so I do absolutely credit my mum for the short, sharp shock.
Sometimes you need that though. Like
Yeah,
that in itself was like an intervention, wasn't it?
yeah, it was. It absolutely was. And I didn't speak to her for a few days because I couldn't. I emotionally couldn't speak to her. I was never going to argue back with her because she was 100% right. So there was no argument to be had. And I remember kind of speaking to her over the next few days then and saying, I didn't drink again. I haven't had another drink. And can I just point out at this point, I would never ever condone anybody or advise anybody who was drinking the volume that I was drinking and then just stop. So I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
condoning
dangerous,
that.
isn't it?
Yeah, it is dangerous. And I always say that to people that I'm kind of working with. Please don't do that. I think I must have been probably at the very latest stage that I could have done that. I think if I'd have been drinking another few months, I'd have been in rehab or not around. Because I do feel as though that was how bad I'd got. And another thing that I did at that stage was I started to write a blog. I told everybody. I put it on Facebook. I was open and honest. I said, look, I reached a rock bottom and I've not had a drink in 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. And I started to tell my story to anybody that would listen. And what I wanted to do was show that was no shame in reaching that point and then doing something about it. And the more that I shared my story, the more people came to me and said, first of all, Sue, I didn't realise you had such a drink problem. And second of all, it's made me think about my own drinking. So as time went on, I actually inspired people to cut down on their drinking, to mindfully drink, or to stop drinking altogether.
Yeah.
I will say that the partner that I was with at the time, he did stop drinking the same day as me in support and solidarity. So that was a massive help. But I think the rest of it was just sheer grit and determination and not wanting to die like my dad
Yeah.
that had got me sober.
Something clicked there, didn't it, with you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um,
So
and I
did you
remember,
have no what sorry, did you have
well,
no like withdrawal symptoms at all? Like
no, but like I said, Dave, I definitely think I was very lucky or that somebody was looking down on me, or that I had just caught it in the very, very nick of
because you
time.
say that right, and
Yeah,
like because people know that I was drinking a litre of vodka a day.
yeah,
And when I was married, I obviously couldn't bowl in with a litre of vodka and that. So I was on the wine again. hiding it and stuff. But it was probably 3 or 4 bottles a day.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't have any withdrawal. I was sweaty in that, but
Yeah.
and this isn't to say to people, oh well, I got away with it, so you can, because we're all different, right?
Yeah.
But I was so lucky because I could have easily had a seizure.
Yeah.
I actually, and I spoke to William Porter about this in depth, and he said because I was quite like physically fit because of my
Yeah.
job, and my metabolism would constantly work it off daily, that it would get rid of the alcohol really quickly
Yeah.
because I was a grafter with my job. And he
Yeah.
seems to think with that, with my build as well, I'm quite a big bloke, and it's like maybe that contributed towards me not having that. But I
Yeah.
also think genetically as well, it's possible that some of us can be more vulnerable to that, but it's not worth the risk, is it? Because
No.
this is why I say to people, like, for partners of someone with a drink dependency, is the worst thing you can do is tip it down the sink.
Mm.
Because if they got nothing there and they have a seizure or they got severe withdrawals, it's really dangerous.
It is really dangerous, and I think that, and I had actually, I'd been to my GP, and gone to some smart recovery sessions. Now, they suggested that I cut down. I told them I cut down, even though I hadn't, because they're not there. They're not. I
No,
could
no.
get away with it. I was highly functioning. I was faking my life. I was faking that I was good at my job. I was faking that I was functioning, and that I was capable of doing all these things. Of course, I can fake it to a smart recovery worker. So I was getting really good at hiding how bad I was. Um, I forgot what point I was trying to make there, by the way.
Well, it was more about the you said about going to the doctors. Did they
Oh yeah,
say about cutting down and
they did say about cutting down. Yeah, yeah. So I did seek help. I think that was my point actually. So I know I did say that I just stopped on one day, and I did just
yeah?
stop on one day, and it is extremely dangerous. But what I will say is, I was doing the research. So I'd already downloaded some Quit Lit books. I'd already started listening to some podcasts. I used to listen to Janie Lee Grace in those very, very early days, because there wasn't as many
Oh
podcasts out
no,
there as what
no.
there are now. There's an abundance
Mm,
of support out there now, and books and podcasts. And so it's so readily available,
yeah.
and support groups and coaches and things like that. Whereas 7 years ago, it wasn't actually that.
We're the OGs. I mean, yeah. I
I
mean,
know.
I went to a event right in the beginning, and I met Claire Pooley, William Porter, Janie Lee Grace, and that, and Rock Sober Boys. I don't know if you remember them.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, Lee and Sean.
Yeah.
And it was really like a much smaller,
Yeah.
closer knit community then. It feels very different now.
Yeah,
Like
it does.
I'm quite detached from it all now. I just stay in my own lane and do my own thing. But back in the day, it was all like a really close knit community where you all like supporting each other. But there's quite a few out, you know,
Yeah.
I won't go down that road of, where I'm going, but it does feel
Yeah.
very different now. But your point is that there is so much support.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you know what? Right. Yeah, there's lots of groups, lots of podcasts, lots of books, etc., etc. And so it's not saturated, but there's a lot out there. However, it's about finding what works for you, because
yeah,
if you don't gel with the person who is running that sober group, or who is doing that podcast, or is narrating that book, you're absolutely going to switch off, and you're going to be like, oh no, I can't be doing with that. So find your people, find the people in the group, find your tribe, and find what works for you,
yeah,
because there'll be somebody out there now. Whereas when it was us, we were stuck with what we had. Not that there was anything wrong with that.
yeah.
So
And before that, it was just AA.
yeah, yeah,
Like, so, social media has a lot of criticism, but
yeah,
when you look at it now, there is so much support available, and it can only be a good thing, because not everyone's going to like me, not everyone's going to like you in the way you are. So it is really good that there's so many different things and different
Yeah.
tones of podcast, and
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
great. Yeah,
And I like, so my approach is, if you don't like me or can't work with me, absolutely fine, because we're all grown-ups and we can all, have these conversations. I will point people in everybody's direction. I said to you before that, I make sure everybody knows about Alcohol Explained, everybody knows about your podcast. I share your work in the sober space that I have. So it's all about sharing, because somebody might find their person that they relate
yeah,
to more than they relate to you. And it's not personal,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
personal to them, not you.
yeah.
We're here to assist people to get sober and inspire people, but
Absolutely, I love
their
that.
journey.
Yeah, I love that. So you're 7 years in now. In
Yes.
those 7 years, have you had any moments that you've found quite tricky?
So I mean, I could sit here and say no, because I'd sorted all my shit out and I was all fine and stuff. I did have a couple of years ago a moment where my relationship ended. So, like I say, it was a 13-year relationship, and there was a period of very heavy drinking and then a period of sobriety. And I thought that was it for life. I thought my life was perfect, sober, uh, going great places at work, my relationship was great, etc., etc. And, very, very suddenly that all changed for me. Didn't see it coming. And, I was plunged into a bit of a deep, dark space where I was like, no, pull your big girl pants up and pretend you're all right. You've got this, Sue. You've done bigger and worse things, and you've been through worse things. However, inside it didn't necessarily feel that way. I did struggle. I really struggled with the ending of that relationship. And I thought, how can I do this sober thing alone?
Mm,
Um, Now, as it happens, that made me realize that actually the person that had got and kept me sober was me, not him.
yeah,
So, and I did give him quite a bit of credit for that. And I don't know that you remember when I did that public speaking talk and told my story when we met, I actually gave that person quite a bit of credit and said, "Oh, without that support and solidarity, I wouldn't be sober." Now, actually, I don't believe that now, because I got me sober, I did the work, and I did that. So when the relationship did end, I did have to kind of think, right, okay, I'm sober because of me. I'm my why. And my boys, obviously. And so I had to recognize that I'd done the work, and it was me. So I did have a dark kind of few months, if you like, before I gave myself a talking to and thought, right, you've been through worse. You've done
yeah,
harder things. And so I just had to kind of regroup and turn that around. However, did people keep a closer eye on me during that period of time? Probably,
mm,
because if any time I was going to be tempted, it would have been during that time, because it was just such a turbulent thing that happened. I had to turn to other coping mechanisms, which were very healthy,
mm.
breath work, cold water dipping, running, walking, those kind of things. So, because I'd done all of that work and had all of those things in my toolbox, they were there, ready for when I needed them.
Yeah, and also I think when you're sober, you're more rational, right?
Yeah,
Because I've had a couple of relationship breakups and that, and I think you look at it more grown up, and you also realise that there's a good chance it's not actually about you; it's about them.
yeah, yeah,
And the one I had at the beginning of the year was exactly that. It was like your one. It was like out of the blue, and it's like
yeah,
I don't understand it, but actually, when I've looked into it, it was all about them and not me.
yeah, yeah,
But if I was drinking, I'd be ranting and raving and saying inappropriate things when I'm drunk on text and in
yeah,
social media and that. And it makes you realize how level-headed you are when you stop drinking and you can rationalize it properly as an educated grown-up rather than a bumbling idiot
yeah,
or a keyboard
exactly.
warrior. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly that. And you said it, and you started out today and you were talking about reflection. And it's one of the big words that I would say I have got the most since being sober, doing the work and being reflective.
Mm.
You know, I feel, and I don't know about you, that we make mistakes less times now. So when we were drinking, well, we made a mistake every day, let's face it. We would make mistakes and forget about it and move on. And it was very difficult to learn from those mistakes. I feel as though since I've been sober, I'll generally only make the mistakes a couple of times before I'll think, you need to have a word with yourself here. So,
Yeah,
like you said, we're clearer, we're more reflective, we will look at our behaviour and analyse it. Sometimes we overanalyze it, but we don't continue to make a mistake
yeah,
as much.
yeah. And another thing that I've noticed about myself is that when I was drinking, I was really impatient.
Yeah.
And do you know what? So I'm the most patient man in the world. I tried to get a doctor's appointment yesterday, right? And they said it's a 5 week wait.
Oh gosh.
So they said, ring 111, phone them up, told them the symptoms. They said, right, we think you should go to A&E. So you can go to Peterborough at 2:30 yesterday, right? I couldn't even get in the door. It was that crowded. People are standing out in the foyer, right? I was there till 7 o'clock, and I literally just sat there thinking, okay, it's fine. Um, at least I'm going to get seen. There are people
Yeah.
worse than me that need to be seen. And I just chilled throughout the whole thing. I know that when I was drinking, I'd have been moaning. I was so negative. And I've said it before. My ex-wife used to say, you're the most negative person in the world. And I used to like, what are you talking about? I go to work, I pay the bills, blah, blah, blah. But what she meant was my attitude was negative.
Yeah.
That was always half empty. It'd always be like, oh my God, look at this lot here, make my life miserable. And I
Yeah.
just sat there and I was almost like in a meditative state in the,
Yeah.
the waiting room. Do you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
come home
Yeah.
and I was like, right, I've got all the antibiotics I need,
Yeah.
and they're going to start working now. And all right, I might have been away for the afternoon, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's how I noticed with me is my patience, my tolerance, my listening skills, my empathy. There's so many things that I've got now that I didn't have before.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, all of that you've just said, I can relate to because I just think I used to walk off. I used to switch off halfway through conversations. I used to black out halfway through conversations, and it's like, well, what kind of quality of conversation and relationship were we providing to somebody?
Rubbish, basically, because
What's
all I used to think about was, why are you so slow drinking your drink?
oh, I
I
know.
just bought that round and now I've drunk mine and you've just had a sip out of it. What am I going to do now?
You get fixated on this stuff, don't you? I
You're
know.
not listening to what they're saying. You're looking at the
No,
bloody drink.
I
And then
know.
you think I'll have an in-betweeny,
Yes.
the old good-fashioned in-betweeny. So 7 years, what's coming up for you? Like anything exciting?
So my life is very good. I'm very happy. I have met somebody new. I have a partner called Jay. I've been with him just under 2 years. So we've got a house together. I also run women's retreats in Bali. So they're sober retreats. The women don't necessarily have to be sober, but just not drinking whilst we're on retreat. And so we do all well-being and breath work and things like that. So yeah, I do sober coaching and I also do breath work and sound baths. So I just,
Wow.
even though I have a job, I love my job. I love working for the NHS. It's really where, I'm really passionate about it and I am really quite good at my job. So that's that. And then on the other side, and I've got energy to do this, I look after people's well-being and, you know, if somebody needs help with cutting down drinking, it's a bit of an arm round your shoulder approach, or come on, we can do this together. If people come to me and they're kind of stressed and anxious and they can't cope, it's like, well, come lie here and we'll do a sound bath or some breath work. And I just feel as though not only am I providing services to people who might need their well-being looked after, but also it's tools for me,
Mm.
for my own well-being,
Yeah,
practice
absolutely.
my own breath work, and
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
a lot from all of this.
I did a sound bath in Thailand and it was bloody lovely.
Yeah, I saw your adventures in Thailand. I've never been to Thailand actually, but that did look good.
Well, I'm going back.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going back in October. I'm going to do a little bit of work for the people coming out there. I'm going to do some one-to-ones and stuff
Amazing.
like that. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And I'll be out in Ibiza again because when I went with Alex Sober Sommelier, Sober
Right.
Sound Systems, went out to Ibiza and I went out on my own. I didn't know what to expect. And oh my God, it was fantastic. I loved every minute of it. And that's what I was saying on another podcast that since getting sober, my kind of buzz for travel is enormous. I
Yeah.
want to see the world because I haven't seen the world because I've been pissed most of it.
Yeah. I haven't, I know I always say, oh, I'm not very well traveling. And people are like, you've just been to Bali like twice in a year. But that's not the point. I haven't been many places and I haven't, done much adventuring. And I never did as a young person either. Um, what was I just going to say then? Going to Ibiza, actually, it's one of the things on my bucket list. And my son keeps saying to me, why are you going to Ibiza, Mum? It's just full of drink and drugs. Don't
It
go there.
isn't like, do you know
But
what? When I went,
can
it
be.
wasn't. It really
Right.
wasn't. I went in August, like the end of August, which is like prime. And I was really surprised how little drunk. I mean, I'm being honest, I was probably in bed by
Yeah.
10 o'clock and they're not going
Yeah.
out until then. But
Yeah.
honestly, it didn't feel like that.
Right.
And, and Alex, he does a pop-up bar every month of I think it's May, June, July, August, September, and that.
Right.
And you book a flight early and you can get out there. And I went for 4 days, and it felt like 10 days. I don't know what it was about it, but Ibiza has an energy that I
Yeah.
cannot explain. But once you know it. As soon
Yeah.
as I landed there, and Alex took me to Esvedra, where his story was when he touched the rock, he stopped drinking from that moment. But it's very,
Wow.
very spiritual. And I was there at midnight, sitting on a rock overlooking Esvedra,
Oh,
with the moon behind it. And it's like, oh my God, like what's happening to me? It was almost like I don't know, it was so spiritual for me. And I'm definitely going to go back this year. And
you might have sold it to me there, Dave. I think you should
yeah,
also work in the travel industry.
yeah. It was lovely. But look,
Um,
so it's been absolutely amazing talking to you and lovely getting you on
okay.
at last because we've seen
We've
each
been
other here, there,
threatening
and
it.
everywhere, haven't we? And that, and I bet you wondered what I was going to ask when I said, "Hi, Sue, are you all right?"
It is funny because I was like, oh my God, he's been hacked again.
Well, you're very worthy of the interview, and I've really
Oh,
enjoyed it. So well done.
thank
And
you
if there's
so much.
anything you'd like to say to anyone that are listening, and they're kind of on the cusp of stopping, or they know they've got problematic relationship with booze, what would you say?
So one of the things I think I've become a one-woman mission to show that life is not boring. If you're sober, there's so many people out there. Connect with people, connect with like-minded people. Find something that you're passionate about. My things, cold water dipping, things like that, and sound baths. And also, it might be that the thing that you want to find or crave is peace and calm. That's a little bit of a phase that I'm going through since I've reached 50.
Oh, you
But just
poor old
find,
girl, you.
I can't cope with it. But yeah, just find your thing
Yeah,
find your reason why, find your people, the find the energy and why you want and need to be sober. And it is such a better way of life.
yeah.
So reach out. That's what I'd
Well
say to
done. And like my sort of mantra is like you're never too old to change your life,
people.
right?
No,
And
no.
that's not just drinking, it could be eating, it could be mindfulness, it could be educating yourself. I got to 54, and at that time I felt a very old 54.
Yeah,
But now I look 20.
you're a spring chicken, Dave.
No, I feel really well and healthy, and I've got a really good positive, not
Yeah.
toxic positivity. It's like everything's amazing, but I feel in a really good place in my life. I've got beautiful people around me, and I think what your mum said there about you're going to end up like your dad is where I was going, and I was close to it as well.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
honestly believe spiritually I've been given another chance, and I'm so grateful for that. I never take it for granted ever. Every
Yeah.
single day, I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you,
Yeah.
because I feel like I've been given another chance and, many years to come, hopefully. So thank you,
Yeah.
Sue.
No
Go on.
problem.
What
I
was you
was
going to
just going to
say?
say, I was just going to say, actually, it's not just about, being given another chance. It's also about what we do with that chance.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you. Well, I know that you are in service to people and helping other people to become better versions of themselves. But it's about like, I don't know about you, but I found my purpose when I went sober, and
Yeah.
it sounds like you have as well. So
Yeah, absolutely.
just
Yeah, I
use
love
that.
it. I love doing what I do. So, all right,
Yeah.
my darling. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you so
Hope
much.
to see you soon. Thanks so much for coming on,
Thank you.
and take care.
Thank you.